What's up?
Go to Jurassic Park.
Well,
All
I
right, we
have.
we should be live, guys. So, finally, for those of you in the YouTube chat, give us a yay or a nay on the audio, and
Park.
my audio and these guys' audio are on two different
Well,
streams. So, can you hear me?
all
right,
right,
we should be live, guys.
Can you hear me?
So, finally, for those of so can you hear me? Can you hear Big Pod? So if you can
Hello,
hear both
everybody.
of us, we're probably
Hello.
good. Yeah.
Good morning. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody.
All right. Yay. Yeah. So we had to start the stream about 5 minutes late there because Patreon for the last 15, 20 minutes had been having some issues. Their website, it just wouldn't let me post anything. It was a lot of pages on it were just erroring out, bad gateway, Cloudflare, you know the whole deal. Where I tried to post a link to you guys, all the patrons. I sent out a post every month, and that post just would not go through every time I tried to send it.
I had the same issues with Patreon right now. I think they have quite some traffic at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely not a me problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some poor web admin sweating right now, probably.
No. Some poor web admin. That's what it is. They hired the wrong people.
No, I don't know. I don't know if it's the wrong people, but there's some guy who's sweating right now.
Yeah. Shots fired at Patreon. Well, you know what? They should be running Linux servers instead of Windows servers. Well, I don't know if they're running Windows servers. That's a joke for Big Pud.
Don't.
So, what's everybody been doing as far as Linux and tech related? Obviously, it's been a busy month. Obviously, it's a new year. I know there were a lot of new distro releases here. I haven't taken a look at any of them. Just taking a break from the channel. So, I really haven't done anything tech related because one of the things I did was reinstalled Arco Linux on this machine. I did a fresh install. I went with Arco again. Much more minimal installation this time. I did Arco Linux D installation because I wanted to strip down to the bare minimum because I had so many things that were broken on the previous installation. I just wanted to slowly add things so I could actually figure out the things that worked and the things that were broken. So far, everything is good. Although anytime you do a fresh install, it took me about a week. So I did the fresh install about 6-7 days ago, and it's about a week later. And right now, it's like the computer actually works as it should because I made a lot of the same mistakes I always make when I do a fresh install. You forget to back up certain things, like the PGP keys again. I always forget that. So my password store is like, but you know what? I have the same password store, the same passwords and everything on my home computer. So I just grabbed those, brought them to this machine. I also forgot to back up user share fonts, which causes a lot of problems because so many config files I have for various window managers, terminal emulators, text editors, any kind of word processing documents and things. I have special formatting for various different fonts, and it's all broken unless you have all of your fonts. So it's like, I forgot user share fonts. But again, I had most of that stuff on the home computer anyway because I share a lot of the same things. Other than that, OBS, this is the first time using OBS since doing the fresh install, and OBS is streaming as expected. So, and then that is actually one of the programs that was kind of broken on the old install. It was getting to the point where it was crashy. There were certain pop-up windows, like the settings pop-ups and things. None of those windows worked. They would just open up an empty window. You'd see the border, there'd be nothing in it. And then at that point, OBS would just hang and you couldn't do anything. That problem was solved by the new install. I haven't tried KDE Live yet because this is a streaming video instead of a recorded video. When I do a recording, later this week, I'll probably do something where I have to play with KDE Live, and let's see if that works as expected. I know GIMP is working because I have played around in GIMP a little bit. So those three programs are what I need to work flawlessly. I need OBS, KDE Live, and GIMP. If those three things are working, I'm pretty much good on everything else. You guys been distro hopping or anything this month?
No, I just wanted to ask if you
No.
you ran with Doom Max again, which would be contradictory to your minimal setup, I assume.
Well, actually, Doom Emacs is pretty minimal, but no, I'm just going to use the config I've had.
Okay.
The one I did those videos on, those 6 or 7 videos configuring Emacs videos.
Yeah,
because it's essentially Doom Emacs. I basically made it like Doom Emacs. So
I tried it.
But
again.
Doom Emacs would be very easy to get up and running if I didn't have my configs to take with me. I mean, Doom Emacs basically gives me the same
run
config.
The script. Yeah.
Yeah.
I ran with the install script. I tried using it with the server since I was a great NeoVim plus Tmax enjoyer. And I thought I've seen a lot of wizards using Emacs. And so I tried to switch, but I don't know. I can't get that program working nicely for me.
Yeah, you do have to use the server just to speed things up.
Yeah, I did.
One of the differences with Emacs compared to Vim, it's like everything is backwards. With the Vim workflow, typically you open a terminal, you're already in a terminal doing all this command line stuff, and then you end up in Vim, and then when you're done, you end up back at the command line.
Yep.
Emacs is totally different. Emacs, you open Emacs first. If you want a command line, you can get it inside Emacs. You know, that's where a lot of people have issues, is because they're used to always the very first program they open is the terminal. And then once they're in the terminal, it's like, why do I need to open Emacs now? Well, instead of opening a terminal all the time, open Emacs all the time instead. And that's the difference. And that's what a lot of people, when they switch, they can't get used to that workflow. And they're like, well, damn, I'm always in the terminal. Why shouldn't I just use Vim? And you're right. But the thing is, you shouldn't open that terminal. You should just open Emacs, because Emacs has 4 different terminals built into it, depending on what you want to use. And
all right.
But yeah, Emacs, though, you know, the terminals aren't great, but some of the command line stuff built into Emacs, I think you'd appreciate. For example, Tramp doing SSH inside Emacs is really nice.
That's one of these things when working with Tmax and running a Tmax session on a server, you run into trouble. So that was one of the things why I wanted to look at Emacs. You can carry along your SSH connections.
Right. And you don't have to worry about Emacs being on any machine you remote into. It's just your config on your machine. Basically, you do the find file command, like you're searching for a file, but you're going to give it the address to some server.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you see is the file system on that server inside a Diriad buffer in Emacs. It's really easy. Give it the password, and Emacs saves the password for you. Right? So
VS Code can do the same thing.
It's
pretty
so nice.
Standard thing nowadays with good text editors.
With good text editors? Well, actually, I was going to bring up some good text editors and possibly some bad ones. I don't know. I did see that there is a new text editor out. I saw an article about the Zed text editor, that's ZED, which is a fork of Atom, except from the creators of the original Atom editor, except they're doing this written in Rust instead of Electron, which I think is pretty telling. That they, you know what, that whole Electron thing, that was probably a bad idea. Let's do something different.
They're actually conscious about their mistake they made with Electron, that JavaScript is now everywhere, and I think it's a great idea to rewrite it in Rust, to write a good text editor.
More Rust.
Wait, are you saying JavaScript isn't everywhere? That I mean, a lot of people know JavaScript. I understand the appeal of Electron.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, of course, but you know, like, you can
and it's Big Pod's favorite language.
You can either smash a nail into the wall with a stone or with a hammer.
Right.
You know.
Fun fact: Electron was made for Atom.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was originally called Atom Shell. That's what it was originally made for.
Well, that's part of the name. Atom is part of an electron, right? It's part of, an electron is part of an atom.
Big Pod, you're pulling a Josh here.
Why?
You're showing us some knowledge.
Well, what's interesting about the fork of Atom, obviously this was from some of the original creators, but there's been a very popular fork of Atom out for a while, the Pulsar editor. Now that is much more like the old Atom as far as its Electron. It's got same kind of plug-in system going for it. And it's actually pretty nice if you like the old Atom editor. Pulsar is pretty nice. I haven't tried Zed yet, but I did think it was interesting that they decided to go a different route as far as what they were building it on.
There's an
I would think that
unfortunate
Zed
reality to Zed. It's Mac only as of right now.
It's what?
It's
Mac only.
Mac OS only.
Oh, yeah, right now. Yeah, they said it's Mac only. But Mac and Linux aren't that different. The Linux edition will be out very soon.
There will be some wizard people who'll figure out a port pretty soon, I assume.
Well, that's another reason why Electron, being cross-platform is right.
Well, Rust technically is cross-platform too, so.
Yeah, there are apps for Windows, Mac, and Linux written in Rust, and the more new applications come out, we notice that more and more Rust is being used as a default, and that's something Oglo would love.
Well, I do like it too, because Cargo actually is one of the best ecosystems in terms of package management and organizing an ecosystem. Like, he'll compare it to NPM, and it's the first versus the ninth circle of hell,
Speaking of which, since DT has been absent for and rightly so, you needed a break. But I think you did not hear the news.
Which
Zero Linux is no more.
What?
Yeah, I did. I announced the discontinuation of Zero Linux early this month. But the name is still in existence. And speaking of Rust, the toolkit that it's transforming into, because I'm converting it into an Arch post-installed toolkit that gets all the work out of the way, all the essential work without doing. And I switched, and DT, I don't know, maybe it's because of a lot of you guys hinting, very, very politely, shall I put it, very politely hinting that Zero Linux, yes, it is great, but it's not a distro. It's it's not supposed to be called a distro. It's a spin. It's a whatever. I finally realized that and spun 180 degrees completely. And now it's either use Arch as the way it either use Arch the way it was intended to be, or don't use Arch. If you want something that you use right out of the box, that is simple to use right out of the box and everything, don't come to Arch Linux. It's not like Arch-based distros are going to make your life easier. They're just going to make you, they do things differently, not necessarily simpler.
Right.
But speaking of Rust, the toolkit I'm working on is the front end is in Rust. That's why I'm saying Rust is taking over, but it's not me who's writing it. That's why I mentioned Oglo. He's a guy 15-year-old kid who knows Rust like the back of his hand. He writes applications. He came up with 3 new applications in the span of 2 hours. A to-do app, a file manager, and another weird app. And he even deals with a language called Brainfuck. So he wrote his first application, his first interpreter, Brainfuck interpreter. So all that in the span of 2 hours. That kid is a genius. He's a machine. So kudos to him. But he's working on the front end for my scripts. But yeah, Rust is a language that more and more developers are adopting as we go forward. It's surprising, it's alarming, it's advancing at an alarming rate. This is This is new to me. I've never
Maybe
seen
one day
something-
I'll take a look at learning some Rust. I'm not much of a programmer, and typically, what I enjoy are more functional languages.
As a
Yeah,
functional
it relies on
enjoyer,
functions.
you would enjoy quite some parts of Rust actually.
Yeah,
So
that's what people tell me. Yeah.
Yeah, it
There's
is.
when you go to cargo and if you want to find something if you want to do something in a certain way, chances are you're gonna find a cargo. If you go to the cargo web page, you will find something that does exactly what you want over there. Chances are you'll find it.
Hmm.
So
Hi guys. Hi DT.
Hey,
hey,
we got you.
Hey, you know what you were saying about exploring new things? Well, I checked out one of your videos on Windows Maker Live, and I've actually been playing with that.
Yeah. That's a real blast from the past. Window Maker.
It's a lot better with that with Window Maker Live than it is than trying to install it on your distro.
I would agree. I've installed Window Maker before, like just the Window Maker package, and yeah, it's not great. But a lot of window managers, a lot of standalone window managers are like that. Unless you have your own config and you've already taken the time to actually do something with it, all of them are typically very, very bad out of the box.
What's actually kind of fun to play it with is the Max Interactive Desktop, which is I can't remember what it's based on, but it's what the IRIX operating system used on SGI machines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I put that in kind of the same category, but Max is actually kind of fun to play with too if you're into the retro UIs.
Yeah. Yeah, in the chat, somebody was asking, hey, did I reinstall Arch on this machine? Because I was telling people I had to reinstall because this machine the installation was pretty badly broken. It was causing me a lot of issues. I went ahead and I reinstalled Arco Linux on this. I did Arco Linux D, which is their more minimal kind of install, more power user kind of install. Because I didn't want the full Arco Linux experience. I wanted to make it as minimal as possible as at first, even though I'm going to install a bunch of stuff on it as I go. I didn't want to install something that had 1,500 packages already pre-installed and then find out something's broken or find out things aren't working right and then try to debug that, try to investigate the problem, find out what the broken package is. Let's start minimal and slowly add things. But right now, everything seems to be working. So.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. I installed Arch Linux using the Arch install script, and I haven't had such a more stable experience. Even on Zero Linux, I didn't have as stable of an experience as I'm having now. And I'm still running KDE and everything, but
I was about to say, just the base Arch install is so minimal, you really shouldn't have any issues. But yeah, you already play.
Speaking of minimal, in the Arch, I discovered as I installed it and started installing everything I needed to get a functional system, I discovered that Arch installs a super minimalistic version of KDE. You don't have console, you don't have Dolphin, you don't have Dolphin plugins, you don't have GwenView, you don't have Spectacle, you don't have anything.
It's just the desktop.
Just the desktop.
It's not the whole suite of applications.
Yeah, it's just the desktop. And you don't have it. I thought by not installing console, they didn't have a terminal. So I was like, how am I supposed to install my applications?
Well, if you did the base Arch install, it probably installed Xterm for you. So you could
exactly. They had Xterm in there.
My favorite terminal.
They had Xterm, but what I wanted to say was, why didn't you go with Arch install? If you wanted to start from minimal and upwards, Arch install is a good idea, as long as you know what you are doing, because you will discover slowly.
Yeah, I mean, I've done plenty of Arch installs. Arco Linux D, it's not that different.
It's basically that, but they do it the Calamares way.
The reason, I'll tell you the reason, though, ultimately, the difference is because of their repositories that already have some things that I was going to want that mainline Arch would only have in the AUR. For example, the Brave browser. It's already packed. Things like that, I'd have to go AUR on Arch.
That's what I did.
Where Eric's already got the binaries for it on Arco. So it's
I was going to do that, have my own repositories where I put all the AUR packages on there. But I thought to myself, but I'm going to be building them to put them on my repository. So why not just install them from the AUR and call it a day? So I have a few hundred packages from the AUR because I rely on them. I need them. And I didn't want to recreate because I deleted all my repositories by killing Zero Linux. So I was like, I'm not going to redo everything from scratch. So I'll install everything from the AUR and rely on the AUR because I discovered from a French dude, Cardiac from GLF, Gaming Linux, France. So he was like, there's a flag for Paru and Yay. It's dash capital Y dash deval dash save. When you run that, it will scan your system for all the Git packages and include them every time you run Yay. So it will not check only for stable packages; it will check for Git packages as well.
Right.
That way, it updates all the Git packages to the latest commit.
Yeah, that makes sense because many AUR packages will
but
have
it's not
a
enabled by
dash Git
default.
extension.
Yeah, but it's not enabled by default. It's for security reasons and for stability reasons. So,
well, most people are not going. Typically, I don't anyway. If somebody has name of package in the AUR and they also have name of package dash Git, the dash Git is always. It's not really a release. That is like the latest things they pushed out, and you typically don't want that.
Some packages are only available as Git. So.
Yeah.
That's like libadwaita without Adwaita. This Eric, this is a package that Eric told us about to fix the libadwaita theming on KDE and other desktop environments. So this one only exists as a
well, that's interesting. So the actual release, the actual package release doesn't work, but the Git version does. For libadwaita?
No, it's libadwaita without Adwaita. The package name is. It builds. It builds. I don't know the libadwaita libraries without the libadwaita dependencies, so you can use it on other desktop non-GTK desktop environments like KDE, for example. Because, for example, if you try to use a theme, a GTK theme on KDE, for example, sometimes they don't work. For example, like PAMAC, it doesn't get themed unless you use libadwaita without Adwaita. So this package only exists as a dash Git. There is no stable package version. And it's really annoying because every 15 minutes there's a new commit. And every time I run update, there's a new commit and it has to rebuild the package. But for me, using KDE, I need that thing because I don't want to rely on libadwaita because libadwaita stable causes issues, theming issues. So yeah.
Did you end up getting your console installed, or did you just stick with Xterm?
No, I installed console. I reinstalled everything.
You might as well.
In my toolkit, there's an option called install missing KDE packages.
Yeah. Because honestly, console has a few dependencies, but if you already installed KDE, the desktop environment, you've already got the dependencies for console, so they really don't save you much by not installing console. Exactly. I can understand why they don't want to install things like Kdenlive or K3B, the disk burning tool, things that have dependencies that aren't going to be there already, but console, you should just have that as part of the.
I don't know why they don't include it. And another thing I noticed is that's a biggie. It's not KDE related. It's Grub. Since the Arch install supports primarily system deboot, that's why system deboot is by default. But if you select Grub, it's not installed the Arch way. It's installed the Arch install way. So the guy who Trox, the guy who created the Arch install, he has his own way of installing grub. He installs only the fallback. He doesn't install the tree structure is boot, and then you got grub. You have a folder called grub or arch for arch. He doesn't install those. You only have boot x8664.efi. The grub.x8664 is not installed. I'm like, why are you doing it this way? So if something happens to grub, there's no fallback to go back to, because it's the actual fallback that got hit. So
yeah, that's strange.
That's very strange. I'm discovering because I'm coming to vanilla Arch from a distro maintainer's perspective. So I'm noticing things that normal users will not notice. It works, but if something happens to grub, you're out of luck, and they cannot provide support because they target system deboot. They don't target grub. So you're on your own for that one. So,
but honestly, probably still most people that install Arch are just going to go through the command line anyway and just
follow the wiki.
They're just going to make the grub config themselves, and they're going to partition everything themselves. They're not going to do because honestly, it really doesn't save you really any time if you already know it's like essentially about 6 or 8 different things you enter at the terminal to install the Arch base. Like if you already kind of know them, like I've done it enough times, I could almost get through an Arch install. I probably could without even reading the wiki. Like I've done the steps enough.
I reached the point where I recommend users who are coming to Arch, just do it the Arch wiki way. Don't do the Arch install way. The Arch install way is for the lazies, and it's not 100% stable.
I mean, you partition your drive, right?
Yeah.
You make your file system, right? You do the time zones. You got to set that, right? You got to create
your
a
keyboard.
user.
You do your keyboard. You do the packages.
Then you got to do the root, and then do the base install with the kernel. Or is the kernel part of the base
headers.
now?
If you're on NVIDIA, don't forget the headers. If you're on NVIDIA, don't forget the headers. Which Arch install does not include. You select in NVIDIA proprietary. They don't include the headers, and they don't include, for example, I selected Hyperland, and Hyperland requires a few modifications to MK-init-cpio and grub or system deboot in order for Wayland to work correctly. They don't include those. So they just install the packages, and if you don't enable the multilib, they won't include the 32-bit libraries for NVIDIA. So you're halfway through. So when you install Hyperland without noticing any of that, you'll end up with a broken Hyperland boot.
No,
I don't understand. Why are they doing things so incompletely? But that's a rant for
I mean,
as a distro maintainer. So for regular users,
there's a lot of
crappy distro. Why?
Oh yeah, okay.
Well, I think he's talking about the hacky solutions people come up with to fix Wayland problems, especially, but all problems on Linux. There's a lot of things that are held together by duct tape.
Yeah,
right. And they're not long-term solutions. Many of these hacky things, and they're going to fail at some point. And
just if you're coming to Arch, just use the wiki, and you have a much better time doing it the pure Arch way than doing it via 100 other different ways. Calamares, Arch install, and all these other things. Those are just hacky ways to install, hacky and simpler ways to install Arch, but that's not 100%. It's not gonna give you 100% more better functional system. I did it the Arch way, the wiki way, and 16 days now, not a single peep, not even Pipewire hiccuping. So
I'm glad Big Pod chimed back in, because I did want to switch over a little bit to some Debian / Ubuntu related news. I know he follows especially packaging very closely. I was really excited to see that Firefox finally released an official Debian package again. So for a while there was only the snap, which I understand, they wanted like Ubuntu to maintain a Debian package for Firefox, but they were like, well, that's a lot of work because Firefox
No.
sees a release like all the
Nope.
damn time.
Nope.
So yeah.
That's not
What's
what
going on
happened.
with it, Big Butt?
That's not what happened. What happened was that Firefox, Mozilla didn't want them to have a package because of some, let's just say, a lot of legalese. That's all I heard. And then they were allowed to keep Firefox if they used the Mozilla official package, which
I
was
see what you're saying.
Snap.
Yeah, some especially large companies do have problems with people packaging their program, especially if you change even the slightest thing from the way they would package it. Yeah, they have issues. So I'm assuming that Ubuntu was modifying it in some way that Mozilla probably didn't agree with.
If you want to install it, the instructions have you install their apt repository. So
yeah. Well, I'm just happy that there's finally an official dib, and by official I mean that Mozilla is actually creating the dib.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not that should it matter who creates the package? I don't know, but people probably will feel better about it that somebody that knows what they're doing hopefully is packaging the thing.
This is
I
what's
wouldn't want
happening.
to package a big web browser. I tell you that.
This is what's happening, especially on FlatHub these days. Like people think that, for example, the Steam package on FlatHub is the official Steam package by Valve because they have under the title, the name of the package on FlatHub, they got by Valve Corporation. No, it doesn't have the verified check mark, and at the end in the description at the bottom, they tell you, oh, if you have your Steam library on a separate drive, you have to run the override at the bottom. Valve will not do things that way.
No.
Valve will never ship a package that gives you that force you to run an override to the package. So people are thinking that, hey, it says by Valve Corporation, so we should trust that package. This is wrong. This is something that FlatHub is doing wrong.
Yeah,
well,
especially
it's one of those things that typically these companies are going to package things in one, maybe two formats at both. You know, Valve has a dev pack, right? That you can go grab, right? But maybe there's an RPM package, but none of the third party things like Snap, Flatpak, App Images, none of that's by those guys.
No,
I'm sure. Is the Arch package from them?
No,
probably not.
They have their own repo for that. They have their own
have-
repo for that.
They have their own repo for their own packages, but it's all
so-
Arch based. It's Arch style packages. You
But
can
then again,
basically
if you need to install Steam using some other format, does it really matter if Valve was not the ones that actually made that package?
Well, here's the problem.
For support, yes.
This is causing a lot of issues on their bug tracker coming from unofficial packages, causing a lot of havoc over there. And
I've seen them complaining about it. Yeah.
there was one
Yeah.
terrible bug that basically RF the user's home directory, including all their files in the package script. I mean, holy hell.
To be fair, now not every package format is
safe.
Is strict about this, but usually you shouldn't be allowed to RMRF in a script, package script.
Incorrect.
Like it shouldn't be.
Every packaging technique allows you to do that. It's more or less just repos that are
They might allow it.
they're nice.
But a lot of
Check
the
for
devs
that.
will complain. I can tell you the Arch devs complain if you create a package build that has RMRF anywhere in it.
So third party,
unless you have a really good reason, like that's the only way you can accomplish what the hell you're trying to accomplish, you probably shouldn't have RMRF in it.
yeah, but how much do you use third-party packaging, third-party repositories
On Arch?
on anything?
I mean,
On
all the
anything.
time. I mean,
On anything. There you go.
yeah.
There comes the problems. Main repos aren't the problem. Third-party ones are. And even technically
AUR is.
and even technically speaking, some of those could get through, especially on certain distros. And I'm not gonna mention which ones.
Well, I mean, technically, any of us could create a snap or a Flatpak or especially an app image, because there's not even a central repository of app images. I can create my own app image that would hose your computer. I could just throw it up on GitHub and hope some random people find it and run it. like I can do that if I was just a real a-hole, but thankfully most people aren't like that.
I mean, there was a comment above that rmrf script that was supposed to basically clear a cache folder, but was badly configured because it didn't respect some behavior of bash, basically, when it was piped into bash through an exec command, to be precise. However, there was a comment line above calling this function scary !
Scary, yeah. It's like, I wouldn't run this on my machine. That should be the comment.
And that's pretty bad if you want to onboard I mean, I don't read all the package files. If I do run a make package for some upgrade, I don't.
Not everyone
basically
reads.
Cross read.
Not everyone. Not everyone
I
reads. That's the problem. That's the problem we're having today.
Trust the process upstream, and I don't know who to trust these days.
Yeah.
We're getting deep now. I don't know who to trust.
Yeah,
Not even myself,
it's sad.
to be honest.
Actually, it's sad. It's sad. We reached a point on Linux that everybody wants to make a package to a certain degree where we no longer can trust it. And some people use the argument where if a repository has signed packages, then we should trust it. No. They can sign any malicious package.
I can be a dick, even if it's a signed repo. I can be a dick.
Exactly. So now there's this whole thing where people keep questioning, why should I add that repo? Why should I add that repo? Why should I install this distro? Maybe it has malicious packages on its repositories. Why?
That's been the argument since the beginning of time. Since the early days of Linux, this has always been an issue with packages. Is where are you getting your software from? It's not safe unless it comes from the core repos of that distro. So, I mean, 20 years ago, people were spreading all the fear about Ubuntu and the PPA system, to where, but there were so many things you had to go get through a PPA, whether, it's kind of like the AUR on Arch, same thing. There isn't a user of Arch that doesn't use the AUR, but you will still hear people tell you that you're going to break your system or whatever. You'll find malicious things.
True. It is true. It is true. There are,
but you're still going to use it.
Yeah, of course, because if you are knowledgeable enough and you are willing to put in a couple of minutes to read what's happening in the terminal, or to read the package builds, then you're okay using the AUR. But if you're not gonna look, you're just gonna use it blindly and start installing stuff blindly.
I'll be honest, I never read package builds or the stuff I installed from the AUR unless it doesn't build correctly. And then I read the package build, but the only reason I'm reading the package build at that point is I'm trying to fix the broken package build so it'll build correctly.
This is something I inherited from being a distro maintainer for 3 years. Now I do not trust a single PKG build. I don't build packages unless I read the PKG build. I spend 2 minutes reading the PKG build because now I understand the PKG build and how they work. So I read them before I package them or before installing them. Because I had an issue with a package once, it didn't hose my system. It just emptied my boot partition.
Classic.
I never trusted package builds.
All the Arch package builds are, for the most, there are some very complicated and unique package builds for some programs, but most of them are are download the source code from GitHub, sudo make install, or download the Debian package from the Debian archives, and then unpack that into the Arch file system. And that's essentially all they're doing for, like 90% of these things.
Well,
Or
here's
take a Windows executable, strip
Oh,
out
yeah,
the
put it in
initial-
Wine. Yeah, I forgot about the Wine ones. And there's also the ones that just download the app image and put it in /opt. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Make it executable and away we go.
Well, here's the thing. Because I learned how PKG builds work, and since we talked about Steam earlier, and Steam only officially recommend the deb, even if you're on Arch. I made a PKG build for to install Steam from a deb myself.
Yeah.
Because this is the official package. That's all.
This is actually a question that, again, it's been around forever, but it comes up all the time. I hear new users ask this question and they can't understand why it's like this. Is why do these companies only release their software in just one or maybe two package formats at most? Why can't they just release it in every package format there is?
Yeah. Because every package format is different. Because every package format has its own idiosyncrasies. Because every package format is hard, and maintaining
it's a
every
lot
one
of
them
work to release.
You need a lot of people, or you need one really good packager who knows a lot of them, someone like me. Or you need,
okay.
I know it because I'm interested in, so I was going through them. Or you need like 7 different people.
Yeah, that's what you need. That's exactly what you need.
One, and then on top of that, you need to either have good relationship with each separate repository, or you have to make each separate repository of your own. Maintain that, and all. It's a lot of work. That's why.
And then you're going to have bugs for each different package format on each Linux distro.
Yes.
Like it's going to be such a headache. You know what? I'm going to create a deb package. This Debian package is only for this particular LTS version of Ubuntu. Nobody else. Everybody else on whatever Linux distribution you happen to be running, you'll figure out your own problems, right? And I understand why they do that. I mean, I know people think it's lazy, but it's not lazy. It's just, it's too much damn work to try to solve everybody's issue.
And with new distros popping up every now and again.
Right. New package formats popping up every now. Like it would be a never ending thing, right?
An important part on what I already mentioned is that it's also that you have to test every distro, have to fix bugs per distro, and very importantly, each distro is its own separate environment with its own separate idiosyncrasies.
Right.
Which means you're going to have 7 separate environments, 7 separate test suites, 7 separate packages to build. Guess what? At the end of the day, I say build for one environment, flat pack, and be done.
Yes, 100% agree. But
I did my reinstall and I went with Arco Linux, but looking at some of the distro releases for the past month, I mean, I could have went with Linux Mint 21.3. I could have went with Solus. What was Solus 4.5? Did anybody try that out?
Yeah.
How's Solus looking these days? They look like
pretty solid to be honest.
Fresh packages. They've got all that straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Because it was looking bleak about a year ago. It was looking real bleak.
I used the KDE spin, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'd rather use SUSE Tumbleweed before taking.
Oh, well, speaking of OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, I had an issue that I couldn't. I talked to the SUSE people. One of the guys who replied, he was like, "Your computer is doing things too fast." I had a network manager problem where it wasn't showing my Ethernet. It was only detecting my Wi-Fi, but my Ethernet, it was showing and disappearing immediately, and I couldn't get it back. I could see it in the KDE settings. No, my Ethernet is. I've been using that laptop on every distro, no problems. But on Tumbleweed, for some reason, it appears, it disappears, it keeps showing in the KDE settings, but I right click it to connect. It only shows me delete in the context menu. I mentioned it on the forum. The guy was like, "Hey, it's trying to connect too early." I'm like, when I launch Yast network thing,
No.
it scans and then it connects. It sees and it connects to it. Every time I have to launch Yast, he was like, "No, your computer doing it too fast. Add a flag to add a delay." I added a delay. I couldn't boot into KDE anymore. So he gave me a wrong instructions, and he called my computer too fast. And that computer is from 2015. I was like, "What are you talking about? It's not too fast." So I'm like, "Yeah." I went back. I went to and messed around with Nobara. Nobara was working fine. So Tumbleweed is not perfect.
No.
Nothing is perfect.
I just
No.
rather installed Tumbleweed before.
No,
Solus.
rolling release distributions in general are not perfect.
No.
I've never found a rolling, like a real rolling release. I'm talking about one that actually keeps up-to-date packages. So I know something like Solus technically is rolling, but it's not really rolling.
It's not
Linux
really,
Mint
no.
Debian Edition is rolling, but that's not really, like they're quasi rolling, but real rolling release distributions, things like Arch and Gentoo and Tumbleweed.
Well,
Debian Sid is the one that, be careful with that thing. That thing will break on you like nothing
like
else.
Arch. Like Arch.
Yeah.
well,
So basically,
Solus and all that, they
Debian
are
Sid is
rolling.
Arch.
They are rolling. They're
I
just
thought
not
so too, that
bleeding
Solus
edge
are
rolling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's what I said, Big Pie.
Yeah.
It's different,
But
but they're still rolling.
It is
really
very
fast.
different. Yeah, it's very different.
They're
Debian
just
Sid
smarter
is
made.
the Arch of Debian. I
Yeah,
like it.
Debian Sid. I mean, obviously they called the branch unstable, right?
For a reason.
It's labeled that way for a reason. Yeah, it's like you really shouldn't be running this, but if you want to, we're happy to have you test packages.
Well,
But don't come to the forums and then complain that your unstable is broken.
nuh-uh. But when it comes to unstable rolling releases, I like those. I like to hurt myself.
Wow.
I like to hurt myself. I like those bleeding edge. That's why I use Arch. So I'm using KDE Plasma 6 on.
A little pain is all right, but sometimes it gets to the point where.
Oh yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Like seriously, somebody needs to come knock on my door and make sure I'm all right. Do a wellness check, right, and make sure I haven't hurt myself. Because sometimes Arch makes me kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, I just try to install. If you were a month ago, if you installed Plasma 6, even for testing, you would end up with a Plasma settings panel with KCM errors all over the place because Qt 6.7 got released before the developers of KDE could build against the new Qt libraries.
No.
The Arch people pushed them, and they forced Plasma 6 to be completely broken and unusable for a month. So I'm like, good thing I did it in a VM, not on my main machine, but now it's stable. RC1 is solid, very solid. RC2 is coming in a few days.
And this is the reason I always recommend people to have a backup window manager. Like if you're a Plasma user or GNOME user, whatever, full desktop environment, have a little lightweight, easy to use floating window manager also installed. So if things break, you can log into the other window manager to fix the broken things. So that for people that don't want to drop to a TTY, I mean, for me, it's not a big deal. For most of you guys, just drop to a terminal and do whatever you got to do. But a lot of people still want that graphical environment. So having something like, Fluxbox installed, which is pretty easy to use, and anybody can figure that out. It's just so you can log into something and open a browser, or research, whatever.
Yeah. What's it called? Docs. There's a window manager. The package is so small, it's less than a megabyte. It's Dusk.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
Dusk is because I used to maintain it on my repositories. the package is literally 795 kilobytes. That's the entire window manager. It doesn't have a lot of dependencies. It doesn't have everything because you build that almost from scratch. All you get is a black background and a terminal. That's it. You don't have a top panel. You don't have a bottom panel. You don't have widgets. You don't have anything. You have to build that yourself.
Yeah,
So
that's what a lot of the old school floating window managers would do, like OpenBox. OpenBox is real scary if you don't already have configs for it, because you install it and you log in and you swear that your computer is frozen because you log in. It logs you in instantly, but you're like, you're waiting. Well, there's no waiting. It doesn't draw a wallpaper. It doesn't have a panel. Nothing's on the screen. It's like you log in and your screen never changes, but you know, you're there.
You have a right click though.
Right click and you get a little menu that will open a Xterm for you if you want it. Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, but if you didn't install Xterm because it's not a hard dependency, that link won't work.
All right.
Well, I recently launched a poll on my newly created Discord server because I'm shutting down the Zero Linux one. I created a private server where I invite the people I trust. But I launched a poll. What I told them I am bored. What should I mess with on my separate drive? I gave the choices of Arch with Hyperland, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, and Nobara. Guess which one won?
Arch. I mean, it's an Arch distro you were maintaining. Everybody there runs Arch. I mean, it's not a hard poll to figure out.
Yeah,
Arch with Hyperland. I specifically said Arch with Hyperland.
Why would a bunch of Arch users want you to go try out OpenSUSE? Like, it doesn't make much sense.
Well, and I specifically said Hyperland, and they chose it because it has Hyperland in the name. So I am going to be trying Hyperland again and hurt myself.
I'm not yet ready for that switch. It's just not yet stable enough.
Exactly, I agree with you on that one. But
It's
I want to mess
just
with
not
something.
there
I'm
yet.
bored.
Well, if you want to break things and have fun with it, you know, like Steve's going to have fun with it. For me, like, I'm to the point, I don't want my computer to have a lot of problems. I want everything to work, and
I actually need to work with it because otherwise I'm gonna have an issue.
No, same. I'm not installing it on my main machine as the main system. I don't know if any of you watched Eric Dubois' video where he mentions he has this interchangeable SSD tray where you interchange your SSDs. You just eject one SSD, you put another like a floppy drive.
I have something like that in this computer. I've had it for years. IC dock. It's a 6-bay IC dock. So I've got 6 extra drives other than the main drive of this machine, so I can actually distro hop on physical hardware, and it makes things real easy. And if I'm formatting a drive and I'm worried about possibly formatting the wrong one, well, I can just pop out all the drives that are. That I want to make sure don't get touched, you know.
Exactly. But except in my situation, my main system is installed on the internal NVMe drive. So, but I'm a distro.
Yeah, that's what I have. I have a 1 terabyte NVMe drive in this computer, but then I have 6 different 256 SSDs in the IC dock. Yeah. So
it makes it easy. That's what I meant by I want to mess with a distro. I meant on the separate SSD in that IC dock thing. So my main system will not be touched, and I will be disabling the NVMe from the BIOS, so it cannot. The bootloader cannot mess with the bootloaders. Don't mess with each other. So I just want to mess with something. I got bored. I really got bored, and you are not gonna hear this very often. I got bored of the stability of my Arch system. It's so stable and boring now. I want to mess with something to break and fix. This is not you don't hear that very often.
I got bored with the stability of my Arch system.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you guys, this is the calm before the storm, because the storm is Plasma 6
It is still
coming.
January, right? It's not April yet, is it? It's not April 1st.
No, but
Yeah.
no, but what I'm saying is it's the calm before the storm, because Plasma 6 is coming and the issues are coming. The explosion will come because I'm using Arch, so I'm not using a custom distro. So if they release it on the Arch repositories, it will be it will be thrusted upon me and it and all its issues, and I'll be spending days troubleshooting.
This is the reason people run Debian stable, because I know that version of Plasma that I get with the new release of Debian stable, other people have been testing it for 3 years before I even touched the thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
So I'm bored during this calm. I want this calm to be shaken up a bit until the actual storm comes.
Yeah, in the chat, Cellular Data, he says, "Don't use Debian if Arch bores you." LOL.
Definitely not. I'm not going to be using Debian. But if I want to use Debian, I would use Debian SID.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to be enjoying it myself.
You wouldn't like that as much as Arch. I can tell you, Arch is different because everybody on Arch is rolling. Not everybody on running Debian's rolling. So you're going to be like a really tiny part of that community that's running that thing.
I want to mess with something.
But you know what? It's fun. I mean, if you like breaking things, it is fun. I've run SID, and it's okay. It's just, you're going to have to fix things. It's like years ago, I would often run the development releases of Ubuntu, which, alpha and beta releases. And those things would always, especially the really early, like the alphas of their releases, would typically break on you at some point. You had to do a fresh install again. And, that's fun because you expect it and you sign up for it. And if that's what you're signed up for, great. Yeah, beta testers.
You don't put anything. Yeah, you don't put anything that you need on there. You just mess around with it.
Yeah, when you go into things with the right mindset, yeah, it's fine. But when you install some of these more unstable distros, thinking they're stable distros, that's where people they go into it with completely the wrong mindset.
And now I expect, since I am expecting the storm of Plasma 6 to hit, in anticipation, I enabled the weekly backup on time shift. In anticipation. It's in anticipation. I don't want because this system is supposed to be my working system. This is because I'm coming back on YouTube in March. I don't want.
You know what?
I don't want this thing to break on me.
Basically building your own Debian then from Arch.
You know what? He makes me think a little bit, because I've always not resisted. I've just never found like I really needed to do snapshots with things like Time Shift or Deja Dupe or any of those tools. But here recently, having to do this fresh install, I wonder, would it have made my life a little easier had I had some Time Shift snapshots that I could have rolled back?
Trust me, yes. Trust me, yes.
Maybe I should be doing that. I don't know.
I am lucky. Put Btrfs first these days.
The reason I don't do it is because I have all my data backed up, like all the important documents and everything. I've got backups to all that stuff, so it's really easy to reinstall. I'm not going to lose, documents or anything, but
spending the time, you're going to lose time.
But like I said, I spent the last week trying to get everything put back together on this machine. Because when you do a fresh install, you don't realize what you're missing until you actually, like yesterday, which was 6 days after I did the install, I opened my run launcher and typed calc for a calculator. Realized I didn't have a calculator installed. I never like you've run into these little things of
Yeah, and
I didn't have Zoom installed before this morning because I didn't have a need to install Zoom until right now. A month from now, I'm gonna realize that programs that I had installed that are not installed, that I need, I'll still be running into that issue.
You waste time. This is what you waste. You lose time that you cannot get back by having to reinstall. But since a lot of us here who expect things to go wrong, we have multiple drives. So for me, I have a 3 terabyte drive that is empty. Basically, I haven't used in a long time. I didn't put anything on it. If I had anything, it was the build environment for Zero Linux. But now that Zero Linux doesn't exist anymore, it's free. So I'm using it for weekly time shift backups. And what I love about time shift backups is I can delete all of them and keep the latest one before restoring.
You know what? As soon as we're done here today, I'm going to install Time Shift. I'm going to start doing the same thing because I already said I've got the IC dock with all these extra drives. I'm going to dedicate one of these 256 drives to the snapshots.
Get a 1 terabyte minimum. You're going to run out of because I had a 500 gig. Listen,
how many snapshots are you saving?
What kind of snapshots are
Yeah.
we talking about?
Well, I'm a little bit unique. I'm creating a snapshot of the entire system. The home directory and the system.
Yeah, so I won't need the home directory. I won't need any of that.
Well, you need the home directory. It has your configs, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I've got them all.
What?
So okay, I've got everything version controlled pretty much in my home directory.
Oh, okay.
Plus, yeah.
But for me, I just
all the important stuff. That's what I'm saying. I can't really lose my data. That's why I've never done the snapshots. I've got backups of everything that's for me through GitLab, through Nextcloud. Like I've got multiple instances of a lot of stuff going. Yeah, I've got copies.
But these systems,
I don't have
snapshots have 60 gigabytes at max. If you have a really
because
system.
I had.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. 256 is plenty for, and I wouldn't want to save more than maybe 3 snapshots. Like after that, 3. Just delete them.
No, I have 3.
He's doing full fat backups. He isn't doing incremental backups. So first one would be, or once in a while, first one would
I see. Okay,
one, then have an incremental one which just changes that. Unless you have a 50 gigabyte.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You won't have 60 gigabyte off.
Yeah, the reason I do it this way is because I want to roll back to a completely functional system, because sometimes even the home directory gets messed up, the system gets messed up, both get messed up. So I'm like, I want to be completely 100% safe, and I was doing it on a 500 gig mechanical drive, which was slow AF. That's why I switched to an SSD. But now it's safer for me. It makes me feel safer, and I don't want to have to reinstall and remember what config I did to what, because there are configs, like for example for OBS Virtual Cam, there are files in the system, not in the home directory. Like for NVIDIA, there are some configurations in the system, not in the home directory. So I don't want to have to remember all that and everything. So I back everything up. So like the Big Pod said, the first backup, the initial backup, will be the size of the system. So 100 plus gigabytes, or however big the size is. So, and then the incremental backups, and then they all add up. At the end of the day, they all add up. It's only 3 snapshots, but I recommend the 1 terabyte if you want to do like me and be completely safe. And I don't use ButterFS, I use XFS. So
okay. Yeah, okay. That explains more.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, Stefan. The XFS, when you create a backup like this on from XFS to XFS, it's really fast. It's really fast.
It's fast because it has fast file transfers and no overhead. You can also do it over the network. That's easy, but it's not efficient in size and compressing. Like ButterFS, if you do incremental snapshots, they are really compact as well.
Yeah, but ButterFS is because I still don't understand how it works, and some people are still complaining.
It's just a different layout, but you'll get used to it. I did it on my laptop now, and I'm using snapshots to basically store the laptop state whenever I want to do something experimental. Just plug in the external drive, boom, pull
Yeah,
out the snapshot.
I'm thinking of finding a way of imaging, creating an image of my system, a complete image before Plasma 6 gets released. In case it gets messed up, I just restore the
You're
image.
talking about like with something like Clonezilla, or
Yeah. I'm
I
thinking
mean,
of doing it.
you can do that as a backup, but I mean
Yeah.
that's
That's a frozen
an-
backup. That's a
that's an
frozen
extra
backup.
that's the nuclear option, right?
Yeah.
Where, like if you need to use that thing, then things went
No,
horribly
like
wrong somewhere.
no,
The
I'm
next
thinking
step
of
will
doing it
be pulling
once.
it from tape.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of doing it once before Plasma 6 hits. Just one image, just before Plasma 6 hits. So if in case I get issues, I figure things out. I know what to put to the ignore list, to the Pacman ignore list, so I don't get the issue again. And I do it on the restored image of.
You know
the
what?
system.
I've got a better option. Don't do a Pac-Man SYU for about a week when Plasma releases. Let the bugs happen.
Go
They
in
get
a
reported,
VM.
get fixed. You don't have to update that day.
Yeah.
Well, I can. Well,
He's
according
going
to
to
the
update
Plasma,
that day, but
according to the Plasma
does every
developers,
15
they were like,
minutes.
Plasma 6 might be released on February 29th, but we need at least a year to optimize the whole system. So I'm not going to be running SYU for a year. Nice one on Arch. And when I do run it after a year, boom, nuclear explosion.
No, you can.
There is a
did that
reason I use
recently.
OS 3 and Silverbrew. I don't have
Well, yeah.
problems with backups. I don't have problems with any of that. If my system craps itself out, all I do
Right.
is load up, even if I have to reinstall, I load up Silverbrew, enter one command, and my system just goes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of the
Welcome,
Nix
big
OS
boss.
guys are laughing at this whole discussion because they're
Yep.
like, "Oh, this doesn't affect us at all, right?"
Oh my God, NixOS has been gaining ground lately.
Well,
Yeah,
they'll be
sadly.
still writing their Nix config files
No.
for another half a year.
Ah.
So
Yeah, maybe one day I'll move to Nix OS on one of my
Well,
physical
now that it has a
machines. I mean,
binary,
I've run it before on test laptops, and it's a really neat distro.
It's a
It
neat
is.
concept.
But I would not be comfortable.
Practically,
on your main system, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I would
it's
not
a
be
good
comfortable
idea,
running it on
bad-
this computer, right?
bad
I also wouldn't run a web server with
Yeah.
Nix OS. Like I'd
No,
run
a server
web
might
server
be.
with FreeBSD, but not with Nix OS. To be honest.
If I want to run a server, I would go with CoreOS, something that has basically image based, not everything built on the system itself at the runtime, because then you're basically at the same point as you were with your standard package manager. Just all it is, you
Depends
pre-wrote
on
a
the
configuration
infrastructure, yeah.
file. That's the only difference.
I don't know. I think we've got that server problem solved. I think Debian Stable and Ubuntu LTS, we've got that server thing down pretty good. Maybe
CoreOS ain't
FreeBSD,
done.
like Stefan was saying. Like, if you want to go FreeBSD for a server, that's all right. But
No, you can't go FreeBSD. Sorry, you can't.
Why not?
Docker.
Well, you can't do it with Docker, but if you do like a simple downscaled process without any containers, without any extra layers of virtualization, and you need a multi-tenant
No, that's not
host,
that's not a
use
simple. That's
FreeBSD.
automatically that's a bad idea. Sorry, in my opinion, you need to have containerization to be actually a good deployment.
I don't know. The BSDs have been getting by without having any of that kind of stuff for a while.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, you still can't even run app images, can you? On BSD, there's still app images. Are still not a thing there, right?
No.
Yeah.
It's all pretty.
And that's
strict
because of
down.
Fuse. Is that the problem?
Not. I think it's a like I do think it's a more of a principle philosophy thing.
Yeah, I mean, even if it did work, they'd make sure it didn't work. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think like these distros are usually quite strict, and that's what I like about them in the web context. If I actually don't want any other layers of virtualizations and automated DevOps and whatsoever, sometimes you just need to splash some HTML for an internal
sometimes
service. And
Sometimes you need opinionated lead devs that just put their foot down and say, you know what, we're not polluting our operating system with this technology. I mean, having choices is always good. Even the anti-system D crowd, as much as they drive me nuts, I'm glad Dev1 is out there. I'm glad Artix is out there. So these insane people have somewhere to go. So they can get the hell out of Arch. They can go to Artix.
They're still pushing some kind of tech. And
you're muted, Big Pud.
Yeah.
Or they could just stop being insane. That's also an option.
Yeah, they could.
A better one.
It's the internet.
Right. Well, what's interesting is that there's no app image support on FreeBSD or BSD, even though the Hello system that the guy who created app images has done is kind of based on BSD. So, but it all
there's
comes
a few
down to
things about
yeah,
because I like FreeBSD. Even as a desktop operating system, FreeBSD could be great. It could be great. It really could. It could compete with Linux. But the fact that app images don't work, the fact that a lot of Electron apps don't work right on BSD, and so many of your big applications, like the one we're in right now, Zoom, I don't know how Zoom would work on FreeBSD. I've never tried, but
it's a different tool, I think. Like a FreeBSD is a different kind of tool than a Linux desktop operating system.
That's really the only thing is like so much of the software that you have on Linux just won't work. But even on FreeBSD, which is the best BSD as far as software availability, and even FreeBSD, like you're going to be lacking a lot of things that you're used to coming from Linux.
But you don't need the Zoom client in order to join a Zoom. You could use
you could use the browser. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Or what I don't get is why everybody mess with the main computer. Have two computers, one production machine, and you put Debian stable and you don't touch it.
Don't touch it.
And then you have a second machine and you can screw it how much you want and how long you want. And that's the problem solved.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Well, I mean, I do that with things I know are going to be a problem. I install them on like these laptops that I keep around, these old ThinkPads. I'll test, like when I do like some of the free software foundation approved distros like Geeks or Triskel or things like that, Parabola, I'm always going to put them on those old crappy ThinkPads rather than my workstation because I know they're not going to work. So put them on a test machine. Don't put them on the real thing.
Yeah, that's why I say
they're not going to work is because the free software foundation approved distros, of course, use the Linux Libre kernel, which doesn't have all the proprietary drivers to make all of your hardware work correctly. So
that's why I have the laptop.
Yeah.
But to be fair to the FSF, they do use the standard kernel. They just because they separate.
They do.
The binary.
They're just removing the binary blobs. Yeah, the proprietary. The upstream kernel removed the binary blobs into its own tarball. So the main kernel tarball is only free software, and then they have this binary thing that most distros include also. Yeah.
But I can tell you, even
that's a good point. When I said it's its own kernel, it's not its own kernel. It's still the Linux kernel, but yeah, it's just different. They've removed the proprietary bits out of it.
I can tell you, even on the stable system, for example, in my OpenSUSE, AMD driver still fucks up.
Yeah.
Even if it is official, recognized, and accepted by the Linux kernel, it's still sometimes if I change the theme to something else, I can get drag marks, I can get frame drops. I mean, so even stable machine, you just get a bad update of the drivers and it's fucked up your system.
Yeah.
So really Debian stable and you never touch it. That's the only solution if you really want to know that when I boot up the next time it works. You don't have a driver issue.
No.
There's a
something like image based is even better. I have a latest system, and if it doesn't boot, I just literally go and press a button, and it will boot into a previous day or even previous week, whatever. and I have a saved point in time, which I know is 100% working. And
Yeah.
if nothing
can
else
do that.
works, I can just go back to that, and it's like, and it's
Yeah, but
basically
that
free
comes
of
at the cost
free.
of doesn't that come at the cost of space, disk space?
Very little. Image
Yeah, I
is
bet.
10 gigabytes in size. It's like literally 10 gigabytes of storage. It goes away.
I mean,
on
you
a
were just saying you have a terabyte of
Yeah.
snapshots. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You know,
terabyte
those-
drive for a snapshot. And what I have is basically,
Got 'em.
this laptop have half a
You got me.
terabyte of drive, and I don't even notice that.
yeah,
then
in the
you
chat,
have,
I wanted to read. I wanted to read a couple of comments from the YouTube chat. One of them was from Cellular Data. He's saying he'd be interested in using Gen 2 as a server, but he's not motivated enough to maintain it. There are some crazy people that do Gen 2 on a
Josh.
server, but
Josh.
really, other than Josh. Yeah, that's really the only one. Sprinkled Knights also wanted about the non-systemd distros. Void Linux is the best systemd free distro. I use it without hating on systemd. Yeah, the Void guys don't hate on systemd because Void, they're not a protest distro. They don't exist. They didn't create Void to be anti-systemd. They created Void just to be different,
Yeah.
right? It's different with Dev1 and Artix. Those are purely protest distros. They only exist because the people that created them hated systemd. So it's a different kind of distro.
On Gentoo, I'm gonna say that as soon as I can create a OS3 based Gentoo, then I might
Wow.
actually try it.
Hey there.
But then at that point, why? Hey, whatever.
Someone
Just-
said once that the best feature of the Gentoo is that when the system is idle, it's idling 4% more efficient than any other.
Are you guys happy with the binary packaging for Gentoo, or do you think that's a little weird that a source-based distro now
Good.
is maintaining binaries as well?
It's a
Good.
great idea for browsers.
It's a great
and
idea, but
basic
which I'm
programs.
still. I personally am waiting for them to create a Calamaris install of that thing.
What?
They don't have a
Gentoo?
package for Calamaris anywhere?
They have
They
it on their.
but they
Hold
don't have
on,
an
hold on,
installer.
guys.
Oh.
There,
Hey, Ben.
there is Calamari's package for Gentoo, but the problem is, creating a distro based on Gentoo is a pain in the butt. I know from experience.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying creating a distro of them. The NixOS
Official one.
I mean, the
Well,
Gentoo,
even if it's not an official one, if you're doing it yourself, you're still basically creating a distro. It's just for one person for you if you're trying to get Calamaris to work.
well,
yeah, I figured out how to get it to load. It's just, the Catalyst. I hate to say this, but the Catalyst documentation is, it's a nightmare.
Wouldn't
Well,
you
3
at the
days
end of the
ago-
day need to just have a squash-fast image that compacts the whole the whole base system, splatter that onto the drive at the time of install, and set up the right directories for boot and set up the right flags? It isn't hard.
What might help is 3 days ago, Red Core Linux released a new version just on the 25th.
Yeah.
And they use Calamaris, so it's possible maybe you could look at their packaging
might.
of
Their
Calamaris.
might.
stuff. Yeah.
I might.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
installing things isn't
considered-
hard.
right. Well, I have considered installing
Debatable.
their thing and seeing what I could do with their stuff, because now there is also the Linux, which is a mutable Gentoo, which has a pre-done automated catalyst thing that I talked to them. I talked to their maintainer Luna, and she said I'm free to work. So yeah.
Yeah, cool.
But
DT.
yeah, I might fork the configs from Red Core or something and play around with that and see where that.
Yeah, if they've got a Calamaris configuration that is just something you could just drop in place and it would just work, I don't know how much customization they've done as far as
No.
they have their own repos and things like that, but I would think you could probably make that work.
Are you back full time, Derek, or no?
Yeah, I'm here today, so.
Well, I hope you make more videos, because I got to tell you, you are by far one of the more entertaining Linux YouTubers I've seen, to be honest with you.
It's hard to be entertaining with Linux. I mean, it's kind of a dry topic, right? It's not.
Well, it's not dry to me, man.
Well,
No,
it's not a dry personality. That's probably
I
what
just
we
say,
can
compare Linux to Windows when you have the fun.
Well,
Yeah.
I have to say, Windows is more dry to me than any other
That's what I'm
operating
saying.
system.
That's
But
what I'm
that's
saying.
Yeah.
I mean, even Gen 2 is better than Windows, right? Even if
Wow.
it's
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Gen 2 is great for servers. If you have a dedicated database servers where you want no additional virtualization for
I
raw
mean,
I/O.
Hannah Montana Linux is better than Windows. Okay, let's
I will agree
any
with
version
that.
of Linux is better than.
I will highly attest to that. Yeah, I'd rather watch a video about Hannah Montana distros than about Windows. I mean, I would.
Hannah
fall
Montana is still the
asleep.
greatest KDE distro ever made.
But the funny thing was, it was using KDE 4, I think it was.
4.2,
Oh,
which
God.
was fantastic. It was glorious.
DT, now
Now
you're upsetting
Derek's
a lot
just
of
trolling
KDE fans.
Yeah.
Oh,
You have to live
God.
dangerous.
Well,
Okay, Linux is better than macOS.
Let's not open that rabbit hole.
I'd rather not get into that because it's going to be it's going to be a bad topic.
Then the Apple fanatics will go after us.
I've done a lot of rants against Apple here in the last couple of months.
No, there's no need.
People know my stance on Apple as a company.
Monstrosity.
Here's my stance. Here's my clean and very mature stance on the subject.
Yeah.
Very mature.
Keep it PC.
No.
Keep it PC, boys.
Yeah. I am going to keep it PC because
we don't want to get Derek demonetized or anything like that.
Just making sure.
I'm the type of person who's got a Windows machine, a Mac machine, and a Linux machine. Yeah. I would recommend, if you have professional work, really I'm talking professional audio, video production, use Mac OS. If you have gaming needs for like games that will never be supported on Linux because of the Vanguard DRM or any type of thing, like use Windows.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to say gaming on Mac, and I was vehemently going to disagree with that.
And use Linux for everything else. Use Linux for everything else. Just have a machine for every. I know not everyone can afford such luxuries. I'm not talking to those kind of people, but for people who can, no need to complain about any of the three environments. Just
you
use
really
one
don't have
for
to.
each.
You don't have to afford anything with Linux. Linux runs on potatoes, literal potatoes.
I'm not talking about Linux. I'm talking about affording the three machines, one for Mac, a Mac machine.
Yeah, but most people were already on Windows or Mac to begin with. They're usually trying Linux, not going the other way. Like they're naturally a Linux user. Let me try out Windows or Mac. It's usually the other way around.
Dark Zero, how much did Microsoft and Apple pay you for that comment?
I wanted to actually interject on the first statement with because we were poor and we recorded punk rock in our studios, so we needed a computer for music production. So we need to build a Hackintosh. For sure, there's the argument. That there's better support for the hardware with audio, especially on Mac devices, which is true to a certain degree. But you can as well build a Hackintosh if you really need that fancy audio production.
I didn't want to talk
Fancy
about something
audio equipment,
unofficial.
yeah.
I didn't want to talk about something unofficial like a Hackintosh, but because I have a Mac.
I'm not sure how YouTube
I'm sorry.
likes Hackintosh either. I mean, it's not like we're demonstrating,
Oh, shit.
you know, how,
No.
but you know, it is.
It is
There are some
the
legal
past.
questions about
Yeah,
that. So
it is a
But,
thing of the past.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
you see what Apple did today. Have you
Yeah.
read the latest crap Apple did? Now they need to force open the App Store in the European Union.
Yeah, they've
But they're
been
going
doing
to
some.
double charge you, not
Yeah.
only for not paying as a programmer,
Mhm.
but for every download, they're going to take 50 cents from you. And I think $2 or something just for you to be able to download it. So they're going to
Well, that's
triple
always-
pay you.
Well,
That's
that's
always been the
insane.
problem with them opening up the App Store. You know, they have to make their money. They pretty much want to make their 30% or whatever on everything.
On the share.
And
40.
anything that gets in the way of that, obviously they're going to reject. So
And they're
Yeah.
taking a cut from all the microtransactions that
Yeah.
are in a lot
Yeah.
of these things. And
I mean, that's the reason. That's a big reason why they're a $3 trillion company. Although
Yeah.
Big Pod, did you know a couple of weeks ago Microsoft's share price, because it's been skyrocketing because of AI, Microsoft overtook Apple as the richest
couple of
company.
days.
Yeah. So, but both of them are a $3 trillion company. It's just insane when you talk about that kind of money, and for those companies,
That's
like-
a whole
There's
bunch of
actually one
zeros.
benefit.
that's a
of
lot of money
Microsoft.
in the hands of some. I'm
TT,
not
but
gonna
there's
say.
one benefit with Microsoft. There's one benefit.
Yeah.
There's actually working together with Canonical. There's at least one step closer than Apple do.
Oh, I mean, they obviously do a lot more for Linux than Apple. I mean,
yeah.
Microsoft's is a sponsor of the Linux kernel. They have board seats. Like they're.
And I don't want to get
They do a
angry about
lot
GitHub.
for Linux and open source. You got to give Microsoft credit on that, where Apple really isn't doing much of anything.
No, actually,
for
Microsoft
that
have their
community.
own version of Linux with Windows theme on, actually, but they are not releasing it. They
And
have
you
it
would
only
think
for
Apple-
internals.
You would think Apple having, like the Mac operating system was originally BSD based. Now it's really kind of its own thing, but still, you'd think they would owe enough to BSD, free BSD in particular, that why don't they contribute anything to?
Nada.
Like they don't do anything for
No.
that operating system. So
They pull downstream actually.
I
Their
said I wasn't going to talk
components-
bad about Apple. Change. Somebody come up
Yes.
with a different topic.
Oh yeah, let's not.
Yeah, you were talking about backups when I joined.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, if he has a big 4U rack server mounted in his shed, and when the ISP rolled out fiber to the neighborhood, he managed to talk them into mounting a fiber connection in his shed, in addition to in his flat. And he has 18 drives in RAID 6 configuration of a total storage of 110 terabytes. So he needs a whole other machine in order to take backup of this thing. I mean, it is jam-packed of movies and TV series.
Questionable sources.
Yeah, but
That's an extreme backup situation. Like,
Yeah.
that's-
and he is actually paying for access to content which he pulls into this thing. So in our country, what he's doing is it's in a gray zone but still legal. Whereas in the US, you can go to jail for a few years for this.
Well, I do something similar where I have a whole system, an HTPC with 14 drives. It's an old Lian Li case, PCE 49 or whatever, 149. It has a lot of TV shows and movies, but if I lose them, I don't care. So
Yeah.
that's
Well, you just need
because-
18 drives in a RAID 6 configuration.
Yeah, I don't have RAID. It's just a bunch of drives. But if I lose TV shows, I'm not gonna cry over them because they do exist. I can just get them back.
What
Yeah.
you would need some redundancy because, I mean, what if a couple of your 18 drives fail? You got to have.
I've had 6 drives fail. I lost the movies. I lost the TV shows. I was like, I'll get them when I get them if I need them.
But they fail pretty close at the same time, or were they in storage, or what would?
Because I don't turn on that PC very often. I only turn it on once every 3 months.
Yeah.
Data rot.
Classic.
Data rot.
Yep. That's what I figured, because I've had the same situation with hard drives, detachable hard drives, or, you put them in storage, put them in a closet or something. You don't think about them for 5 years, 10 years. You go back. Oh, I still got all of that stuff saved. And nope, it's not there.
Yeah, data rot. It's called data rot.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I help maintain this. It is a super micro 4U unit, and we have had a record cold in Norway during the last month. Where I live, it's been down to minus 23 degrees centigrade, so minus 9 something Fahrenheit. So I logged into his server and checked the sensors, and 2 of his CPU cores was minus 1 degrees.
Yeah. And here's another thing. I'll let you know on another thing. I discovered that data rot or hardware rot exists because I had a computer that was dormant for 2 years now. It was sitting next to my desk in the shop for 2 years. I haven't needed it, didn't need to do anything with it. But because of the constant change of temperatures and the weather and all these things, I tried to turn it on because we wanted to give the CPU to my best friend's aunt, donate it to his aunt. Well, the CPU was dead. It just died, completely died, because it wasn't being turned on. It wasn't being activated, and with the weather and everything. So what I would recommend is, if you have a computer that you have absolutely no use for, turn it on every once in a while, just to get the electronics running for a few seconds at least, just a couple of minutes maximum, and then just turn it off. But especially for
the problem with backing up, like long-term backups, hard drives, they kind of suck for that purpose. And
but
flash memory's not really good either.
But where are you backing them up? You're backing them up on the cloud. What does the cloud use? SSDs or hard drives? Same thing.
Yeah, but they have redundancy.
Well, they are active hard drives all the time. That's the difference.
Yeah.
But if you want actual long-term storage, my mother's husband he just retired. He has been working 40 years as a software engineer. His company, they run the biggest European indoor research pool, where they test new ships and offshore drilling platforms and so on. And they still, to this day, do backups on magnetic tape.
Yeah, that's standard.
And that's what I was actually going to recommend.
Cold storage backup solution is magnetic tapes. That's for cold storage.
Yep.
Drives, so hard drives, magnetic recording for hard drives isn't good because while the iron dust on it, that's why it's called spinning rust, will lose magnetism over time, which is why you need to periodically turn it on, let it remagnetize everything, and then you can actually use it.
Exactly.
Hard drives definitely have a shelf life. Like they
don't live forever. They don't live forever.
You might get 10 years. You might get 10 years of storage out of it, maybe.
And if you have a server in the system which serves as a backup unit or as a file server or whatnot, keep it running. And
Yeah,
if
well, that's
something-
not an option for that's not an option for me in Lebanon because we don't
Yeah.
get power.
Well,
yeah, there's that.
But why not have NAS? I mean, 24 bay NAS, and
Yeah.
you can that you can have, and you can put half of it as a regular backup and other as a cold storage backup.
Yeah,
And
give us
actually,
electricity
Steve,
first. Give us
Steve could
electricity.
use a NAS just for his snapshots. Honestly, if you're saving a terabyte worth of snapshots.
Well, those are temporary. But when I get actual power, electricity, or move to a country where there's actual electricity 24/7, oh, dude, I will build myself a wonderful system that I will put all temporary, and I call it temporary data, that meaning data I don't care about, that I access very rarely on there. But for data that is very important, like extremely important, that I will not access very often either, I will get myself a tape drive, just simply a tape drive, because it's static. I won't access it. I just need it maybe once in a lifetime or twice in a lifetime. So I'm a middle-aged man, so I don't have a very long lifetime left. But so basically tape drives, and I'll store them and forget about them. And if I want,
Well, you did bring up one interesting point we should talk about, which is like long-term storage as far as using cloud services and things. Like, would you save like really important, precious, like family photos? I mean, do you guys put that on things like Google or whatever Google Photos is or these days, or things like that? I mean, or
VPS maybe, a privately owned VPS maybe.
No, I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't do that, especially not that. If I was, I'm gonna be honest, not a cloud service as we think of a cloud as in Google Drive, but
Google Drive, maybe, yeah.
I wouldn't do that for other reasons, but something like S3 or S3 equivalent.
Yeah, that would, I could see that.
Because
that's a good
of
point.
how what the data storage, and because I can actually do stuff like have a bit more control over it than don't
you have control over VPS?
Yeah, but you know how a standard VPS on a standard companies that sell VPS, how crappy those are, like really, really, really crappy.
Well, I have an $11
joking.
I have an $11 VPS with 500 megabytes of RAM.
Yeah.
Why don't you use the cloud storage with a cryptic? You encrypt your files, then they cannot access it because you have the keys.
Well,
then you can use the cloud storage.
Well, yeah, for nerds, if you're going to keep up with your keys, great. But like for normal computer users, because when I'm just talking like this photo backup thing, I was really talking about like your basic computer user cares about that kind of stuff. And would you want them to encrypt their data? Because they're going to lose the keys. You know,
what I suggest is using MDisk format and using an optical storage.
Yeah, Blu-ray. Just use like a long-term archive. Blu-ray.
Yeah, because MDisk is supposed to be rated up to 1,000 years storage. So but I wouldn't even
marketing.
Trust it for 100.
That's marketing.
Even optical storage, I don't trust honestly, I don't trust optical storage. And I know it is used, but it is used in a much different conditions than a home user would use any kind of optical.
Oh yeah, the regular home user would throw these around you get some scratching, but also the carbon discs are much resistant, much more resistant.
I don't trust optical storage for any kind of long-term backup.
Oh, I do. I love Blu-rays as far as
CD, DVD, right?
No.
But you can use the Blu-ray cinema use the big disc. Very, very secure.
But see the thing
you do have to buy the one like he's talking about the M disc.
Completely different.
Yeah, but those you have to buy them with the protective coating on them because just your regular disc will.
And even in general, those are used in a completely different condition. Those are stored in different conditions.
It's also
in many cases they are held in a separate what we call a library. Many of those use libraries. They don't just sling disks around. They buy a shelf unit that contains 100 disks.
Well, we're talking about long-term
archival
yeah,
storage.
we're talking about burning it once and then putting it
That's
away.
what they use. That's what they use.
So they shouldn't be playing with the disk anyway.
But the technology is very accessible to the average person, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's not actually that good for average users, because that drive.
I think it's better than SSDs or hard drives.
Of course, but
so what else is there? They're not a regular user's not going to back up to tape.
Right? No,
regular should use cloud. Honestly, regular should use cloud storage. Because the reality is anything else they will break.
Yeah, and even tape drives, if they don't take care of the tape drives.
Yeah, tapes are a specialty item. They're expensive. Like
they
it's
need
not
to be stored properly. Otherwise, they'll get brittle.
And thinking about the machine, the tape machine costing upwards of $7,000. A regular user is not gonna get that. So,
well, I do.
Well,
unless they're used to paying Mac prices, they might think that's a deal.
Well, the MDisk format has also been subject to substantial testing too, and accelerated aging tests. So compared to other formats, but yeah, I mean, look, the key though, I think, takeaway from all of this conversation is you need multiple backups.
That's where I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring that up with the disk too. You should make multiple backups, and you should actually test the backups on occasion. Copy to new backups on occasion. So you should again have some redundancy, right? So one failure doesn't.
Well,
but basically,
offsite storage at that.
Offsite storage, that's exactly.
Speaking of offsite storage, I would agree with have multiple backups, because the amount of backup that I need is a total of maybe 3 gigabytes.
Yeah,
for me personally. So I don't need a large storage thing. So I am backing up off-site, and I'm backing up on my Raspberry Pi. That's one of my other backups, because it's a Docker container heaven, my Raspberry Pi. And I'm backing up on other drives on other machines. So I have 3 backups of everything that I really need. A few gigabytes here and there are not going to be a big difference, but for people who have large backups, it can become very costly very fast.
But actually, why don't you use NAS and then a second NAS to back up the first one? Then you're pretty much secure, and you can have the other NAS a friend's house.
Yeah, a friend of mine is doing exactly that. He bought 6 2 or 4 terabyte drives. I don't remember what the size, and he has 3 of one of them in NAS, which takes 1 drive, and 2 of them in another, which takes 2 drives, and then he has the 4th one mounted in one of his systems, and then he have a 5th one in a safe in his house. And the 6th one is always at a friend's house, and he rotates the one with the safe with the one at his friend's house 4 or 5 times a year.
As far as the multiple backups and having something offsite, it's many people don't realize how common it is to have a house burned down. Houses do catch on fire and burn down. So, like when we were talking about with tape backups or Blu-ray, MDisc, whatever, everybody has a bank account. Go get a safety deposit box. Go throw that disc, a copy of that disc in a safety deposit box at your bank. The bank will never burn down. That vault, those safety deposit boxes, they will never, be damaged in any way. So that's a good offsite place to go.
A friend of mine, another one, told me when he moved. When he and his wife, they bought a house in the countryside about 20 years ago. The neighbor on the other side of the street, they got to know them pretty well, and they started hanging around. And this neighbor, this was in the Windows XP era, he had configured all his computers to back up to the other two. So all three computers were backing in each other up. And then a lightning strike happened and fried all three computers.
I had that happen with me a few years back. There was a lightning strike to the house, and it fried the cable modem. It fried one computer. I've got multiple computers in the house. I was like, yeah.
Well, speaking of lightning strikes, we had one lightning strike right behind me. There's a balcony behind me. It hit on the balcony behind me, and it fried my UPS, my router, and my other UPS. So yeah, that is not a good time.
That was expensive.
Computer. If I lost the computer, I would be yelling mama.
But did the equipment connected to the UPS survive the strike?
I mean, that's what
I would hope so.
Survived.
Yeah. They all survived. The only thing I lost was the modem. The DSL modem, because we still run DSL. But I lost that. But since I have a computer storage with multiple DSL modems that I sell, I just picked one up and replaced the old one with the new one. I lost the $800 UPS.
Yes, that's what I was saying. That's expensive. You lost two
UPS. $800 UPS.
Those things aren't cheap. Yeah.
So $800 UPS ain't coming back.
So kind of say something real quick on tape. Apparently, Fujifilm and IBM have been setting 6 records in tape storage since 2006. And in 2020, they achieved 317 gigabytes per square inch. And that is currently 27 times more than the aerial density used in current state-of-the-art commercial tape drives.
Yeah. But the machine to use for those tape drives are so costly. Average human is not going to be able to afford them. So
no, those are for billion-dollar companies to.
But still, for technology that's been around since the early 50s, that's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, it just proves that it just proves that just because something is old, it doesn't mean that it is obsolete.
Dude, I so agree with you because. Well, in Lebanon, we're very fortunate to have these. There's our fridge is older than I am. Try to buy a fridge today, it will die within 5 to 6 years. You will have to replace it within 5 to 6 years. This fridge, it's a Gibson. It's from the UK. So it's a UK-based company, Gibson, and it's 49 years old.
Yeah, because at the time when that fridge was made, the stuff that was made was designed to last a while. I read an article about this last week.
They didn't have obsolete.
This guy has had this same fridge in his house for 50 years. His parents bought it, and he inherited it, and he has a suspicion that it will outlast him, which I think it will.
Because back in the day, they didn't have something called planned obsolescence.
Yeah.
I've got an alarm clock right next to my bed that I got when I was a kid, like a young kid.
Yeah.
I still have the same alarm clock 40 years later. Right?
I have the same.
I still have my alarm clock, but you still need to every day pull it up, and it still works. And it's over 40 years old. But you see, before they built to last. I mean, look on the old Volvos. We have Volvos that are 60 years old and still rolling pretty well. Buy a new Volvo today, 10,000 miles, and you're going to the junkyard with it. That's it.
Cars are a lot more complicated now. Back then, it was different.
And very often in cars today, if there's something wrong with it, there's a good chance that it is the electronics that is something wrong.
Exactly.
And you're not allowed to fix it.
Yeah.
Even if you could, you're not allowed to. You can't. Don't touch that. You're going to void your warranty.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's a big middle finger when you open the hood. Don't touch it. That's what it's about.
Like my dad he's got a Mac, not a Mac Pro. It used to be
No,
called.
see, I knew we were going to get back on Apple when you said planned obsolescence.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead, though. We're getting close to the end. Let's go ahead and trash on Apple a little more.
No, not trashing on Apple. It's on the contrary. He's got a PowerPC G5, Power Mac G5 from 2004, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And it still runs to this day, flawless. As long as you're running the software that was made period-wise for it, we were able to access RAID drives that were made on it in 2004, and we accessed them like a few months ago. So it's like, it was like 18 years later, 19 years later, we were able to access the RAID drives.
Yeah, I got a mirror, the dual mirror, 1.42 gigahertz version, G4. It's still running. I have it as a mail server. It still runs.
Yeah.
How do you know it's a mail server?
Yeah. Just for fun.
How do you know it's a male server, not a female server?
I was waiting for somebody to step into that one. You guys saw the movie, The Three Amigos?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it said, and the plane flies over. He says, "I think that's a mail plane." He goes, "How do you know it's a mail plane?" He goes, "Didn't you see its little balls?"
Nice.
Oh.
This reminds me, Apple computers used to be reliable and fixable until Steve Jobs passed away, and then it happened.
Totally agree with you. After Steve Jobs.
Before the Macs were Steve Wozniak Macs. They were not. They were not Steve Jobs Macs. As soon as Steve Jobs took over, he was like, "Hey, Wozniak, sit in your corner, play with your toys. Let me take over."
Yeah, but still, up to Power Mac G5.
Yeah.
Or at least G4, you are really solid Mac. You could switch out any component. You could pretty much put any component inside. It works really. I mean, I have a computer from beginning of 2000. That's 23 years old, and it still runs perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You don't buy a Mac computer today. Doesn't matter if you pay $10,000 or $100,000. It won't last you more than maximum 6-7 years, because then
they do it on purpose. They do it on purpose. Like
exactly.
my MacBook from 2016, my MacBook Pro from 2016, it's self-deprecated on itself because, and I don't use it for anything. It's constantly closed. I just open it, transfer files to this iPad that I'm talking to you on, and that's it. That's all I do on it, and it's self-deprecated on itself.
I can't speak too much about modern Macs as far as OS 10, because the last version of their operating system that I spent real time in was like OS 7 or OS 8. It was a completely
beautiful.
And, you know, it was so much. It's so much better. I know it's nostalgia, but those operating systems back then.
And dude, so on OS 7 and OS 7, I am one to agree with you because I used OS 7.
Yeah, OS 7 would have been like early to mid 90s, and that was, I think that was like the best period of Macs.
The last version of OS 7 was 7.2.2, 2.5. That last version came out in 1994, 1995.
Yeah.
That would make sense. That's what I was thinking. Around 95 was when I remember.
And I love the installation of the operating system. All you had to do was drag Finder and System to the hard drive. That's all you had to do. Yeah. Drag and drop from the floppy or the CD, and that's it.
The best feature of the
9.2 is still today. That's what I'm using of my Mirror Macintosh G4. Even that, if it wasn't for the memory leak problem, it's really good system. It's way better than Windows.
I love the installation, dude. This drag and dropping just to install the system from the CD, that was amazing. And Apple came up with it was Apple who came up with the idea of a caddy CD drive, where you put the CD in a caddy and then you put the caddy in the drive.
Mhm.
Apple came up with that, and Silicon Graphics copied.
Yeah, there-
I
There's
mean,
still-
I was going to say, yeah,
So-
that was also they were really the first operating system I remember that had a trash bin, because then
Yeah.
later Microsoft borrowed the trash bin and created their recycle bin, right? In
Yeah.
Windows
Yeah, yeah,
95.
So you can watch
Yeah.
the
You're
Silicon
recycling hard
Parrots.
drives. Yes.
You can watch
There
the
is a
movie
website.
Silicon
There is a
Parrots.
website for nostalgia's sake. There is a website
Yeah.
where you can go and try all Mac OS operating systems in the website. And dude, the best part of that website, you can give it access to your host, and you can share files between the Mac OS in the web version of Mac OS and your host. You can transfer files between the host and the virtual machine. That's amazing. And you can
Nice.
share your files between guests. So if you want to try another version of Mac OS and you want to try that file on a different version, you don't need to copy it multiple times. You can just share it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
speaking
But
of old,
actually, what's the movie?
The best feature of the G4 was that the bottom half of the one side was a hinge, so you could open it, and the motherboard and everything folded out, so you had easy access to absolutely everything.
Yep.
Yeah. But watch the movie Silicon Parrots. Pirates of
Silicon Pirates,
Valley.
yeah.
Pirates of Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
Pirates,
that's
yeah,
really actually a really accurate movie about it and how they steal from each other. But what
That's
I like
it. Yeah.
about the
Pirates
early
of Silicon Valley. Yeah.
Yeah. What I like about Apple in the early, like you said, you open the door. I think it arrived in Macintosh G3, then G4. You open up and you get the entire motherboard up, and you can switch out any component you want and just lock it, and it's working. But I wish we could get PC with that function today. It will be rock solid.
I remember Steve Jobs and Bill Gates was asked once about the movie Pirates of Silicon Valley, and they both agreed that the movie was accurate in almost every detail.
Yes.
Well,
That's
they would
what it
know.
was.
Yeah.
So DT, ever since Apple Silicon Mac have been introduced, they actually finally forwarded the version of Mac OS. They're now at 14.
Okay.
And the actor who played Steve Jobs in the movie was released in 1999. At the next Mac Expo or something, the annual. The actor walked out on the stage pretending to be Steve Jobs, and the audience bought it for about a minute. And then Steve Jobs came out from the side.
You're talking about the Mac World Conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, guys,
that was hilarious.
Let's go ahead and get a last word, because we're gonna run a little over the 2-hour time, which is not a big deal. These things, I was trying to keep them under the 2-hour mark so they get synced to Odyssey, but Odyssey has not been syncing these live streams anyway, regardless of the sync. But we do want to stay on time here, because we've got some very important NFL games to watch here this afternoon. I got to be heading home. Last 2 games before the Super Bowl. I know you guys are excited about that. So, well, actually,
is this more important than Linux? Come on.
Well, no, because my team is no longer playing, so it's but it's at least on par. So
okay.
But let's get a last word from everyone. I don't know if Aliens, he typically is not mic'd up, so if he is, though, we'll come back to him. Solbu, give us a last word, sir.
Yeah, so I've been a little distracted the last month. On December 23rd, I got a phone call from my parents. My sister live in a house downtown, and she was found dead by health officials, I think. So that was that Christmas. So we had a funeral on the 9th of January. So, yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
That's what I've been doing for the last month. I've been
that's tough, especially around the holidays. I had a buddy of mine who His mother passed away recently. She passed away on his birthday, of all things.
Yeah.
So, now going forward, probably every time he has a birthday, he'll think, about that. And it's like, that's tough.
Yeah, and we highly suspect that it was self-inflicted, to use a careful word, because on the table next to where she was found on the floor, it was a bottle of orange juice and antifreeze in another bottle. So,
yeah, that's tough to hear. Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Solbu. Let's move on to Swedish Linux. Give us the last word, sir.
Well, Christmas was pretty fun. When AMD driver stopped to work on my OpenSUSE. So, and then I got flooding because I now have a lake outside my house. So I can jump in and swim if I like. But besides that, it was pretty cool. Spend time with family. But I really, really wish one thing. AMD, get the grip together. Make a decent driver. Come on. Still doesn't work well. So that's the only wish I have. But besides that, it's going forward. Really interesting about Plasma 6 and all that. But we see how well that would work.
Yeah, you're going to jump on it immediately the way Steve is?
Yeah, on my testing machine, I will do. But not on my main machine. Oh, no.
You guys are brave.
Yeah. I must do something to live. If not, I'm going to get old man soon.
I just wish that AMD would release the firmware blobs that all their graphics cards need to, because the rest of the driver is open source.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, might as well open source all of it at this point. There's no reason.
Yeah, but I suspect that they don't own the rights to the last few bits, which is maybe why they are using it.
Or they may have done some weird shenanigans in the past that they're trying to hide from the public. Kind of like Microsoft does with their old code. I mean, Microsoft's got code that's 40 years old that they keep proprietary. It's of no use to anybody, but they don't want anybody to see what they did, right?
But everybody knows in the beginning of Microsoft, they're still left and right. So,
they stole from, they definitely borrowed. We'll say borrowed. Don't say steal. Borrowed some stuff.
Allegedly.
Yeah, add that. Everything is okay to say as long as you add allegedly at the end.
Yeah, and if you really want to know what they did, watch the Pirates of Silicon Valley.
Steve, give us the last word, sir.
All right. Well, my last word is going to be very simple. It's going to be that everybody be safe, and please don't come to Arch unless you are ready to put in the work. If you're not ready to put in the work and you want something that works out of the box, just use something that works out of the box. There's a distro for everyone. Just don't come to Arch expecting it to be, wow, works out right out of the box, or Endeavor OS or Akashi OS or whoever OS made it so they hold my hand every step of the way. Well, they only hold your hand the way they want to hold your hand. They don't hold your hand the way you want your hand held. So don't skip Arch.
You know what you remind me of? You remind me of when I was a teenager and my parents told me this list of things that I should never do because it's wrong. And I went and tried every single one of them because that's what's happening right now. You're telling all these people, don't try Arch. First thing these people are going to do is install Arch because you said not to.
Yeah.
Well, this is a friendly or advice from a guy who had the experience of maintaining a distro for the past 3 years and had to drop it. I didn't have to drop it with a smile on my face. Mm-hmm. I lost monetization by doing that. So the only source of income that I had, thanks to everyone who supported me, but it was time. The realization that I came to was the right one, because as soon as I followed my own recommendation, I've been a happy man.
So you're recommending Debian 12 Stable Edition, right?
Well, whatever. I'm not recommending a specific thing. I'm recommending something that is actually what it advertises it is. Not something that is advertising, false advertising itself to be something that is not. So please, if you want to use Arch, don't expect the developers and the maintainers to hold your hand every step of the way. There will be some effort that has to be done from your end. If you don't want to do any effort, just go Debian. Whatever Debian. I'm not specifying anything, but anything stable.
Bob Grimes in the chat, he says he's using MX now. He's dropping Arch-based distros. That makes sense. Debian stable with XFCE, like it's guaranteed never to change and break.
Yeah, that's why I praised Ben here for choosing XFCE for his distro, because XFCE is a very slow-moving desktop environment that causes no headaches.
Yeah. So the short version is don't use Arch, by the way.
By the way,
All right. Short version, yeah, basically. But other than that, I want to finish it with make peace, not war.
Well said.
I'll agree.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
No problem.
George, would you like to give us the last word, sir?
Yeah. Thanks for hosting again, and Steve, I think is your Linux now more popular now that you said you were stopped doing it? It's kind of like the challenge to say don't do yards.
That's usually what happens when something dies. People, oh man, why is it going away? I love that thing.
Yeah, no, actually, that's exactly what happened. I got people on my server popping up who never popped up before, telling me, "Oh, I'm so sad that it's going, but it's the distro I've been using since day one. What am I going to do with my data now? It used to be the best distro. Oh, the most stable distro." I'm like, now you pop up?
Yeah, that's usually how it works.
Yeah, I think that it's with software and users as with TV viewers. The TV company says that, at least here in Scandinavia, that they say that when one person calls in, it's the same as if 1,000 users calls in. The same, I think, applies to those who actually bother to do bug reports and so on.
Yeah. Anything else, George?
Nope. Go Lions.
Yeah.
Gotta love an underdog story.
Well, I will root for the Lions because they've never made a Super Bowl, so it's always nice when a team.
Yeah, the last time they won a
never
national
won anything.
Yeah, the last time they won a national championship, I think, was the early '50s, and that was before the Super Bowl system.
Right. So. Well, we'll see. Like I said, I'll be rooting for them. Stefan, give us the last word.
Well, I'll agree on the last part of Steve, what he said.
About Arch?
About making
okay.
peace instead of war, and try to be as friendly as you can. And aside from that, using a Mac with the excuse of needing it for audio isn't valid anymore, because I'm running now with an interface on Pipewire. I can actively monitor, filter. It's almost no latency, and I need to tune my line a little bit more, but we're getting there. However, it's not an excuse anymore. There's great professional audio software on Linux as well. You'll find something out there. And try to make sane decisions about your hardware and systems.
Yeah.
Thank you for the exchange, guys. And I hope you have a wonderful Sunday afternoon or evening. And thanks for everything.
All right. Big Pod, give us the last word. Tell us a little bit about JavaScript on our way out.
I still don't have a job, so subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Yeah, subscribe to everybody's YouTube channel. Well, most of these guys have a YouTube channel. Well, some of you guys have. Steve, you still making videos?
I'm coming back in March, yes.
There you go. Swedish Linux, of course, has a channel. Big Pod. Anybody else want to plug anything? All right. Well, my plug would be thanking you guys for hanging out with me on camera. Thanks to the folks in the YouTube chat. You guys were great. Had a good crowd over there. Some interesting discussions. I do want to thank the patrons that couldn't be here. Now, I've been away from the office for a while, and I did a fresh install. So these are not up-to-date patron cards here that I'm going to show on the screen, but it should be pretty close. So I do want to thank all of these names that you're going to see on the screen here. So these guys, they're awesome. And other than that, everybody wave bye and say, go Lions.
Go Lions.
Go Lions.
Go Macintosh.